Good morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another edition of Lovin Daily. Hi, Julian. How's it going?
Hi, Chris. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's only 3 days to Mother's Day. For all of you who are thinking about what gift to give your mothers, you could just win one instead. So Lovin Daily is brought to you by Browns and You, and we've got a Mother's Day competition going on. Yesterday's winner was Daphne Caruana, who won a €44 sea change smoothing cream from the Fierce range. And today we're giving out a V-Contour serum worth $28.50. So all you need to do is tag your mum in the comments below. Tell us why she's awesome, and you could be today's winner. Today's headlines. So we've got plans for Malta to have more car-free time during village centres. In village centres. We've got a controversial story about a state lawyer, a state prosecutor who moved to the defense team of the person accused of Daphne Caruana Galizia's murder. We've got a story about former Prime Minister Joseph Muscat being back with an economic note predicting the fall in rental prices in Malta. A COVID-19 update, 2 new COVID cases registered yesterday, and also an announcement about childbirth restrictions being eased in the next 3 weeks, and a very, relatable story to all those brides-to-be or couples planning to get married this year. A Maltese bride is pleading with Air Malta to help her out with a bunch of flights that she needs to know whether she can cancel, postpone, or see what to do with them. Anyway, so that's our top stories. We'll start discussing right away. Julian, you want to start with the plans for car-free time village centres?
Yeah, sure. So yesterday on Lovin Malta's COVID calls, Transport Minister Ian Bulge sort of suggested that certain Maltese villages and squares around the country, will go car-free at certain hours of certain days. So he was explaining that even though the COVID pandemic has been relatively tough and brought new realities, it's sort of also given us chance to observe, appreciate the beauty of, quiet squares and quiet villages, So he sort of suggested maybe this should give us the impetus to ensure that they're car-free, beyond helping sort of with the maintenance of the area and how beautiful it could be. This sort of car-free concept, Borge hopes, will also allow artists, musicians, and band clubs to showcase their talents in public villages. Obviously, Maltese villages in recent years have become a bit soulless, filled with concrete buildings, loads of traffic, no real, culture, no real life, and let's hope that sort of this initiative can sort of change that. I don't know what you think about it, Chris.
Yeah, I think it was interesting to see the minister talk about these issues and how the ministry was inspired by what is happening around the country at the moment, where obviously there's much fewer cars on the road. There's people jogging and walking, and there's all the nice kind of activity that you want to see in a village square. Maybe fewer people than you like to see, but anyway, I think that was an interesting measure. Let's try and follow up on it to see what actually happens, because as we know in the past, whenever there's been a car-free day, people just don't obey it in Malta. So 2 other points that the minister raised yesterday were the fact that in terms of the metro and the Gozo tunnel, these projects are going to become much more important to Malta in the recovery. So in the economic recovery, so more than, because I was basically asking him, as the government finances become more under pressure, as people might, for example, start to travel less by public transport, are we still going to do these projects? And his response was, this is not just my decision; it's the decision of cabinet, but these are going to be so much more valuable to us now in the economic recovery, when we've got unemployment, when we need to provide jobs and we need to stimulate the economy. So, that was COVID calls yesterday. Join us again at 11 for today's COVID calls, where we'll be talking about the situation facing elderly homes, care homes, and the difficulties and very sweet stories as well emerging from there. Moving on to the next story, we had a controversial story about a state prosecutor, a young lawyer who worked with the Attorney General's office, and he quit and overnight appeared on the defense team of Jorgen Fenech, the man accused of Daphne Caruana Galizia's murder. I think this is the Daphne Caruana Galizia's family. Actually, I just wanted to add this: have called for an investigation into this. They're claiming that this, exposes some sort of collusion as well between the state and the defense team. I don't really know yet what to make of this. I think it definitely is something that needs to be explored in terms of, I'm curious to see what the Chamber of Advocates has to say about this. I'm curious to see what certain legal experts have to say about this as well. But we know that the investigation and court case in the Daphne Caruana Galizia murder has been fraught at every instance with controversy and with questions on the independence or rather the effort being undertaken by the state, and this is another one of those issues. What do you make of that, Julian?
Yes, it's certainly a very curious story. So Charles Mechia, who, if you remember, is the son of former Labour MP Franco Mechia, actually told the Times of Malta yesterday that he was never involved in the Jorgen Fenech case, either directly or indirectly, during his time at the Attorney General's office. And that's fair enough. However, the appointment is really suspect. Mechia is very young. He doesn't have actually quite a lot of experience in the field. And while he might say he was not directly involved in the case, odds are that he was probably given access to some details, some intimate knowledge. These were his colleagues. These were people he worked with on a daily basis, and it's certainly, it's very concerning. I really hope an internal investigation is actually immediately launched. Mm-hmm. So
also to move on to the next story, which is kind of related as well when you think about it. Yesterday we've been hearing for the past couple of days about how the former Prime Minister Joseph Muscat is kind of back on the scene giving economic advice to the man who used to give him legal advice and is now the Prime Minister, Robert Abela. We got hold of this economic note by Joseph Muscat, and I guess it's quite interesting in the sense that he's predicting a significant fall in tourism, which would lead to the kind of tourism that is more likely to hit hotels than the Airbnbs, in the sense that the hotels are going to be better prepared to ascertain certain health requirements, and therefore we should look into niche tourism, etc. The bottom line is that he's saying rental prices will drop in Malta. But the big controversy here, I guess, is Joseph Muscat, someone who had to step down because his own office was being implicated in the murder of Daphne Caruana Galizia. We heard that from the Prime Minister that he's not going to. We heard from Robert Abela that the justice will be seen and everyone will be investigated, etc. Obviously, it begs the question: is Joseph Muscat being investigated to any extent? And if he is, how does this sort of advice he's giving government, how does that play into it? How does that look in terms of the independence of the state and its ability to properly investigate what actually went down in the murder of Daphne Caruana Galizia? So it's a big controversial situation. And Julian, I wonder if you think the state even needs the advice of someone like Joseph Muscat.
Well, so I think you touched on it a bit of a day, So number one, I think the crucial issue is, 4 months after Muscat was made to resign, in probably Malta's largest political crisis, he's sort of back in the picture. But even the necessity for Muscat to be there raised a lot of questions. Within the government, there are several competent people. There's Finance Minister Edward Cicluna, and not to mention the new chairman of the central bank, Gordon Cordina, who's considered, an economic expert in the country. It also raises some questions about Prime Minister Robert Abela's leadership. He's having to rest on his predecessor, possibly giving some indication that he doesn't have the respect of his cabinet members or the proper decision makers, probably the backing of proper decision makers to take the path forward he probably feels best. And it raises sort of a bit of a funny callback to when Don Mintoff appointed Carmela Musul-Bonnici Prime Minister and was still tinkering with the leadership beyond that. So we'll see how it progresses.
Having said that, I think there was a bit of a funny moment as well yesterday when Net News asked Silvio Schembri, the economy minister, why the prime minister needs to resort to Joseph Muscat. And Silvio Schembri responded by saying, "Oh, I know it must be very strange for the Nationalist Party to have a former leader, cooperating with a current leader. Yours had to leave the country, But I think, again, okay, that's funny, but at the same time, there is this concern, and I think there are other implications, Is Robert Abela doing this to win over the support maybe of some people who are missing Joseph Muscat, some people within the party who might be saying, Joseph Muscat is what we need right now. We know that Joseph Muscat is quite a good economic mind. I mean, controversial, sure. Things like the passport deal, was that a massive benefit to Malta in terms of bringing in over €1 billion, or was it a detriment to Malta in terms of our reputation? So very controversial in terms of his ideas. Although this economic note didn't seem too controversial. But let's move on to the next story, a bit of an update from the side of Charmaine Gauci and the fight against COVID. So we had 2 new cases registered yesterday. We also had 4 recoveries. And so the number of active cases now is down to 72. So just 72 active cases. We know that 5 deaths have been registered. And in total, upwards of 38,000 tests have been carried out. So that's on the COVID front. Plus, Chris Fern, Deputy Prime Minister and Health Minister Chris Fern, announced some easing of the measures in terms of childbirth. Ju, can you give us an explanation of what's happening there?
Sure. So essentially, during the COVID-19 pandemic, a preventive measure was put in place, sort of forbidding partners to be in the labor room whilst their significant others were giving birth. Now, I know a lot of mothers-to-be who were actually really worried about this measure. It's quite scary going in there alone, especially going through something like childbirth. But now these restrictions will be lifted, and the partners will be present with the mother, which I think is it's good news, for all parties, and hopefully, mothers will be happier now when they're giving birth to their new child. People who won't be so happy, to move on to our next story, are Malta's brides-to-be. So yesterday we covered a story about a Maltese businesswoman who was planning to get married to her Sicilian fiance in August. Should have had everything planned, her Sicilian fiance's family were all coming down to Malta in August. It was going to be, quite a big celebration. But she's sort of been left frustrated by the national airline because obviously she wants to reschedule, she needs to start planning, see what she's going to do. But the airlines simply aren't going to give her a reply on what's going to happen with these flights until about 3 weeks before. So leaving quite a lot of uncertainty out there for not just this bride, but a lot of brides-to-be, a lot of flights. There's a lot of money at stake and people are getting concerned. Obviously, I see her point to a certain degree. But then again, these are sometimes the sacrifices of a public health emergency that we sometimes have to accept.
What I find quite interesting in the story was how she said, she also had some flights booked with Ryanair. She hasn't even bothered with Ryanair, but she expects this from Air Malta. And I think this really highlights Malta's relationship with Air Malta, where on the one hand, this is what makes Air Malta great and so important for the country, that it should go, out of its way to help. And we know it goes out of its way, especially when it comes to medical and humanitarian flights and such. But it also goes to show the unfair situation it sometimes is placed in comparison to other airlines, right? I mean, but to all those brides-to-be who are struggling to reshape their wedding plans, and couples-to-be who are struggling to reshape their wedding plans, good luck, and please do share your stories with us in the hope that maybe several entities could help out as well. I want to just remind you all about the competition that we've got going on Lovin Daily every day. This is a Mother's Day competition. Don't forget that Mother's Day is just around the corner on the 10th of May, and we've partnered up with Browns and You to get you a prize every single day. Today's prize is a V-Contour serum from the Fierce range, Sea Change range. It's worth $28.50, and all you need to do is tag your moms. Do it right now. Tag your moms in the comments below. Tell us why they're awesome, and you could be the winner. Yesterday's winner was Daphne Caruana, and today's winner could be you. All you need to do is, tag your moms. Julian, I think that's it from us for today. It's Thursday already. Tomorrow's Friday. The week's flying by as usual. Have a great day, and to all our viewers, have a day full of loving.